The alarm bells rang through the corridors of the New Horizons like a death song. Captain Sarah Chen rushed to the bridge, her heart pounding as red warning lights flashed across every surface. 50,000 sleeping colonists had no idea their dreams of a new world were about to become a nightmare. "Report," Sarah ordered as she slid into her captain's chair. The bridge crew looked terrified. These were good people, farmers, teachers, doctors, engineers, all hoping to build a peaceful colony on Kepler 442b. They had trained for equipment failures and asteroid strikes. Nobody had prepared them for this. "Unknown vessels approaching fast," said Lieutenant Torres, his voice shaking. 12 ships, each one 3 times our size. "They're not responding to our peaceful greetings." Through the main screen, Sarah watched the alien fleet emerge from the darkness of space. The ships looked like giant metal serpents with glowing red eyes. Sharp edges and weapon ports covered their hulls. These were not exploration vessels. These were warships built for one purpose, and to kill. The communications panel crackled to life. A harsh reptilian voice filled the bridge, speaking perfect English with a cold, arrogant tone that made Sarah's skin crawl. "Primitive humans of the vessel New Horizons, I am Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrian Hegemony. You have entered our territory without permission. This is your only warning." The main screen changed to show the alien speaker. Vextar stood nearly 8 feet tall, covered in dark green scales that seemed to absorb light. His yellow eyes glowed with cruel intelligence. Sharp teeth filled his mouth, and when he spoke, Sarah could see why his voice sounded so threatening. "Your species is unknown to us," Vextar continued, examining his claws with bored interest. "But that matters little. You will follow our standard protocol for new civilizations. You have exactly 72 hours to make your choice." Sarah found her voice. "What choice?" "We're peaceful colonists seeking to establish a settlement. We had no knowledge of your territorial claims. Perhaps we can negotiate." Vextar's laugh cut through her words like breaking glass. "Negotiate? Foolish creature, you misunderstand your situation. This is not a negotiation. This is an ultimatum." The alien leaned forward, his scaled face filling the screen. "You will power down your vessel and prepare to surrender all 50,000 humans aboard for processing. You will become workers in our mines and factories. Your children will serve our military. Your technology will belong to us. In exchange, we will allow your species to continue existing." The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of life support systems. Sarah felt her crew's eyes on her, waiting for her response. In the background, she could hear families laughing in the recreational areas, completely unaware of the conversation happening on the bridge. "And if we refuse?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. Vexatar's smile showed rows of razor-sharp teeth. "Then we will demonstrate why 17 other species have chosen slavery over death. Your vessel will be destroyed. Your colony world will be claimed by the hegemony, and we will send hunting fleets to your home world to finish what you started." He gestured to something off-screen, and the image changed to show recordings of other alien species. Sarah watched in horror as peaceful cities burned under Zephyrian weapons. She saw families torn apart, children loaded onto transport ships, proud civilizations reduced to ash and slavery. "The Velkari fought us," Vextar narrated casually. "Their homeworld now grows food for our soldiers. The Thornians tried to hide in their underground cities. We flooded them with plasma fire. The Shimar attempted to reason with us, much as you are doing now. Their philosophers make excellent servants in our libraries." Each image was worse than the last. Entire species broken and enslaved, worlds stripped of resources, cultures destroyed and forgotten. Sarah realized she was looking at a genocide machine that had operated for centuries. "You see, little human, resistance is pointless," Vextar continued. "We have perfected this process through 17 conquests. Your species shows promise. You achieved interstellar travel faster than most. With proper conditioning, you could serve the hegemony for generations." Sarah's hands tightened on her chair's armrests. "You're talking about enslaving our entire species." "I am offering your species survival," Vextar corrected. "The alternative is extinction. Choose wisely, Captain Chen. Your people's fate rests in your decision." The alien somehow knew her name. Sarah realized the Zephyrians had been monitoring their communications, studying them like insects under a microscope. They knew about the colonists, about Earth, about humanity's hopes and dreams, and they planned to crush all of it. "How do we know you'll keep your word?" Sarah asked, buying time while her mind raced. What guarantee do we have that you won't simply kill us after we surrender? Vextar looked genuinely amused. You have the word of the Zephyrian hegemony. We have ruled this sector of space for over 2,000 years. Dead slaves produce nothing. We prefer our conquests alive and useful. He leaned back in his command chair, confident and relaxed. Besides, where would you go? Your primitive vessel cannot outrun our fleet. Your weapons are toys compared to our arsenal. Your shields would not stop a single blast from our weakest gun. You are completely at our mercy. The Admiral checked something on his wrist device. 71 hours and 57 minutes remain. I suggest you use this time to prepare your people for their new lives. Those who resist the transition will be corrected. Those who cooperate will find their slavery quite tolerable. Sarah stood up from her chair, drawing herself to her full height. Even through the screen, she wanted Vexitar to see her clearly. And if we choose to fight? The alien's expression shifted to something like pity mixed with contempt. Then you will die like all the others who made that mistake. But first you will watch your families burn. Your children will scream your name as our weapons tear their bodies apart. Your elderly will beg for mercy that will never come. And in your final moments you will realize that your pride cost your species everything. Vextar stood up, his massive form filling the screen. 71 hours and 56 minutes, Captain Chen. Choose slavery and your people live. Choose death and we will make sure your species is forgotten within a generation. The decision is yours. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in terrible silence. Sarah looked around at her crew. Good people who had signed up to plant crops and build schools, not to make decisions about the survival of humanity itself. Captain, Lieutenant Torres whispered, what do we do? Sarah walked to the main screen, now showing the dark shapes of the Zephyrian fleet waiting in the distance like vultures. Behind those ships lay the death of human civilization or its enslavement. Either choice meant the end of everything they had hoped to build among the stars. But as she stared at the alien warships, something cold and hard settled in Sarah's chest. Admiral Vextar had made several assumptions about humanity. He assumed they were weak because they traveled in families. He assumed they were primitive because their ship looked peaceful. He assumed they would break like the 17 species before them. Sarah smiled grimly. The Zephyrians were about to learn that assumptions could be very dangerous things. Lieutenant Torres, she said quietly, open a secure channel to Earth. Priority Alpha protocols. Yes, ma'am. What should I tell them? Sarah's smile grew wider and much less pleasant. Tell them it's time to wake up the wolves. The emergency session began at exactly 14:32 GMT, Earth Standard Time. Every world leader, military commander, and intelligence chief sat in the United Nations Assembly Hall or joined through secure quantum links. The atmosphere felt electric with tension and barely controlled rage. President Maria Santos stood at the podium, her usually calm face showing the strain of the past 12 hours. The recording from Captain Chen had reached Earth through quantum entanglement communicators, technology that Admiral Vextar clearly didn't understand humans possessed. Ladies and gentlemen, Santos began, her voice carrying to every corner of the room and across every secure channel. We are no longer alone in the universe, and our new neighbors have just made the worst mistake in galactic history. The assembly erupted in angry voices. Delegates shouted questions and demands in dozens of languages. Santos raised her hand for silence, and gradually the room quieted. When she spoke again, her words were ice-cold and perfectly clear. They think we're sheep, she said simply. They think we're another peaceful species they can add to their collection of slaves. They looked at our colony ship full of families and farmers, and they assumed we were weak. They couldn't have been more wrong. Santos activated the main display, showing the Zephyrian ultimatum in its entirety. The alien's arrogant voice filled the chamber, as delegates watched 17 civilizations burn. When Admiral Vextar finished speaking, the silence in the room felt like the calm before a hurricane. Secretary General Park. Santos called to the Korean diplomat at the front row. Please activate Protocol 7. Park's eyes widened. Madam President, are you certain? Protocol 7 has never been used. Once we begin, there's no going back. They've already declared war on humanity, Santos replied. They gave us 72 hours to surrender our species into slavery or face extinction. I think it's time they learned what humans do when someone threatens our families. Park nodded grimly and entered a series of codes into his secure tablet. Around the world, hidden facilities began powering up for the first time in decades. Military installations that officially didn't exist started revealing themselves. Projects that had been dismissed as science fiction suddenly became very real. General Harrison of the North American Defense Command stepped forward. Operation Sleeping Giant is now active. All deep space monitoring stations are reporting in. Luna Base confirms readiness. Mars Command is green across the board. The asteroid belt installations are fully operational. Santos smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. Good, what about our friends out in the Kepler system? The New Horizons is performing exactly as designed, Harrison replied. Captain Chen and her crew are maintaining their cover perfectly. The Zephyrians still believe they're dealing with helpless colonists. British Prime Minister Johnson stood up from his seat. Madam President, I must ask, how long have we been preparing for this scenario? Santos turned to face the assembly. Since 1947, when we first suspected we weren't alone. Since the formation of the United Nations, we've had one primary goal hidden beneath all our public missions. We've been waiting for this day. The day someone from the stars would come to Earth and give us a choice between slavery and death. She gestured to the display showing the Zephyrian fleet. Every major power on this planet has contributed to humanity's real space program. The public space stations and Mars colonies you know about, they're just the visible part. The real installations have been hidden for 70 years waiting for this moment. Chinese Premier Li spoke from his secure location in Beijing. The mining operations on Ceres and Vesta have been producing more than raw materials. Our weapons platforms are fully charged and ready. Russian President Volkov's image appeared on screen from Moscow. The Siberian installations are online. Our deep space scouts have been tracking alien movements for 2 decades. We know their patrol routes, their supply lines, their weaknesses. Santos nodded to each leader as they confirmed humanity's hidden preparations. The Zephyrians made several critical errors. They assumed our colony ship was defenseless because it carried families. They didn't realize that every farmer aboard New Horizons is also a trained soldier. Every teacher is a communications specialist. Every doctor is a combat medic. She switched the display to show technical specifications that made several delegates gasp. The New Horizons isn't just a colony vessel. It's the most advanced reconnaissance and first strike platform humanity has ever built. For 5 years, our people have lived their cover story so completely that even they sometimes forget their warriors. General Harrison stepped forward again. The ship's modular construction allows it to reconfigure for combat in less than 4 hours. The colonists' personal belongings include enough weapons and equipment to arm a small army. Their farming tools can be assembled into heavy weapon systems. But that's just the beginning, Santos continued. While the Zephyrians have been conquering peaceful species, we've been watching them. Every one of their battles has been recorded by our deep space observation posts. We know their tactics, their technology, their psychology. She brought up a detailed analysis of Zephyrian military doctrine. They're bullies who prey on the weak. They've never faced a species that evolved through constant warfare. They don't understand what it means to fight predators who spent 1 million years learning to hunt in packs. Indian Prime Minister Sharma raised her hand. What about their superior technology? Their ships are clearly more advanced than anything our public space program has produced. Santos's smile became predatory. They are more advanced than our public space program, but we stopped showing the public our real capabilities sometime around the moon landing. Would you like to see what we've actually been building while they conquered 17 species? The display changed to show sleek, deadly-looking vessels emerging from hidden asteroid bases. Ships that looked nothing like the clunky designs the public associated with space travel. These were weapons of war, built by a species that had spent centuries perfecting the art of killing. Every Zephyrian victory has taught us something new, Santos explained. We've studied their plasma weapons and developed countermeasures. We've analyzed their energy shields and created ways to penetrate them. We know their fleet compositions, their command structures, their supply requirements. She paused, letting the implications sink in. The Zephyrians think they're the apex predators of the galaxy. They're about to discover what real apex predators look like. Brazilian President Silva stood up. How many ships do we have? Enough, Santos replied simply. But this won't be won by ship-to-ship combat alone. We're going to teach the galaxy something that humans learned long ago. The most dangerous wars aren't fought by armies. They're fought by small groups of very angry individuals who refuse to give up. She switched the display one final time, showing a map of Zephyrian space with dozens of red markers. While they send their fleet to crush our helpless colony ship, Our special operations teams are already moving into position throughout their empire. The Zephyrians are about to face something they've never encountered before. What's that? Asked German Chancellor Weber. Santos looked around the assembly, meeting the eyes of every world leader present. They're about to face humans who are really, truly angry. They threatened our families. They tried to enslave our species. They assumed we would break like all the others. She pressed a final button on the podium, and across the solar system, thousands of hidden weapons platforms powered up for the first time. On Luna, Mars, and scattered throughout the asteroid belt, humanity's real military might begin to reveal itself. Admiral Vextar wanted to see what humans are capable of, Santos said quietly. He's about to find out why we're the only species on Earth that survived the Ice Age, the plagues, the wars, and the centuries of trying to kill each other. We survived because we never learned when to quit. The room fell silent as the full scope of humanity's preparations became clear. They hadn't just been preparing for contact with aliens. They had been preparing for war among the stars. God help them, whispered Secretary General Park. Santos nodded grimly. God help them indeed, because we certainly won't. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching with satisfaction as 3 more Zephyrian battlecruisers dropped out of hyperspace. His fleet now numbered 15 vessels, more than enough to crush a single primitive colony ship. The humans had exactly 6 hours left to surrender, and he was looking forward to their inevitable capitulation. Admiral, his communications officer reported, the human vessel is requesting another dialogue. Vextar's scaled lips curled into what passed for a smile among his species. Excellent. They're ready to beg. Put them on screen. Captain Chen's image appeared, and Vexitar immediately noticed something different about her expression. Gone was the fear and desperation he had seen before. Instead, she looked almost amused. Admiral Vextar, Chen said politely, I wanted to thank you for giving us time to prepare. Prepare for what, human? Your surrender? Chen's smile widened. Oh no, Admiral. We've been preparing to show you something. You see, you've made several assumptions about my ship and my people. I think it's time we corrected those misunderstandings. Before Vextar could respond, alarms began blaring throughout his bridge. His sensor operator's voice cracked with disbelief. Admiral, the human ship, it's changing. On the main screen, the New Horizons was transforming before their eyes. External sections that had looked like cargo pods and agricultural modules were rotating and reconfiguring. What had appeared to be a peaceful colony vessel was revealing weapon ports, defensive systems, and military hardware that shouldn't have existed. Impossible. Vextar breathed. Our scans showed no weapons. Your scans showed exactly what we wanted them to show, Chen replied calmly. Admiral, meet the UES New Horizons. Not a colony ship, but humanity's first deep space reconnaissance and combat vessel. Every farmer aboard is a trained soldier. Every family unit is a military squad. Every piece of farming equipment doubles as a weapons system. The transformation completed, and where a helpless transport had been floating moments before, a sleek warship now faced the Zephyrian fleet. Its hull gleamed with armor plating that had been hidden beneath false panels. Weapon turrets extended from concealed positions. Shield generators hummed to life with a frequency that made the Zephyrian sensors scream warnings. You wanted to know what humans are capable of, Chen continued. But first, let me introduce you to some friends of ours. Vextar's blood turned to ice as his sensors detected new contacts appearing throughout the system. Ships were decloaking all around his fleet. Vessels that had been hidden using technology he didn't recognize. They moved with predatory grace, their weapon systems already locked onto his ships. Where did they come from? Vextar demanded of his sensor operator. Unknown, Admiral. They were completely invisible until now. Our sensors show no hyperspace signatures, no energy trails. It's as if they've been waiting here the entire time. Captain Chen's voice drew his attention back to the screen. They have been waiting, Admiral. You see, we've been watching your empire for quite some time. We know about your conquest of the Velkari. We studied your tactics when you destroyed the Thornian cities. We learned from your subjugation of the Kimar and 14 other species. She leaned forward, and Vextar saw something in her eyes that he had never encountered in 70 years of conquest. The cold, calculating gaze of an apex predator. Did you really think a species capable of interstellar travel would send out completely defenseless ships? Did you assume we were so naive that we'd explore the galaxy without weapons or support? Admiral, You've been dealing with prey species for so long that you forgot what predators look like. The human fleet formed up around Vextar's ships with military precision that spoke of years of training. Their movements were coordinated, efficient, and absolutely terrifying in their implications. These weren't panicking civilians. These were professional warriors who had planned for this exact scenario. Impossible, Vextar repeated. Your technology level couldn't support such vessels. Our intelligence reports showed primitive chemical rockets and basic orbital stations. Chen laughed, and the sound sent chills down Vextar's spine. Your intelligence reports showed exactly what we wanted you to see. Admiral, humanity learned a long time ago that the best way to survive is to let your enemies underestimate you. While you were conquering civilizations that built beautiful cities and created art, we were building weapons and learning to hide them. She gestured off-screen, and new images appeared on Vextar's display. Hidden bases on asteroids, concealed shipyards in the outer system, weapons platforms disguised as mining equipment. The scope of human deception was staggering. For 50 years we've maintained 2 space programs, Chen explained. The public one that builds research stations and explores Mars, and the real one that's been preparing for the day someone like you would come calling. Every launch you observed carried hidden military components. Every peaceful research station concealed weapons and warriors. Vextar's communications officer frantically worked his console. Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy buildups from all human vessels. Their weapon signatures are unusual. I've never seen anything like them. That's because you've never fought humans before, Chen replied, somehow hearing the report. Your energy weapons are designed to overwhelm the defenses of civilizations that build primarily for beauty and efficiency. Our weapons are designed by a species that spent 1 million years learning to kill everything on their home planet, and then learned to do it better. The first human ship opened fire, and Vextar watched in horror as the plasma beam punched straight through his cruiser's shields as if they weren't there. The weapon didn't just penetrate the energy barrier, it seemed to feed on it, growing stronger as it absorbed the shield's power. What are those weapons? He demanded. Adaptive plasma cannons, Chen replied casually. They analyze your shield frequency and adjust their own output to create destructive interference. The stronger your shields, the more powerful the weapon becomes. We developed them after studying recordings of your fleet actions against the Velkari. Another human ship fired, and a second Zephyrian vessel began venting atmosphere. Then another and another. The human weapons were unlike anything the Zephyrians had encountered. They seemed to learn from each shot, adapting and evolving their attack patterns in real time. Retreat, Vextar ordered. All ships fall back to hyperspace. I'm afraid that's not possible, Chen said with mock sympathy. You see, one advantage of being here first is that we had time to set up a hyperspace interdiction field. Nothing leaves this system until we say so. Vextar's tactical officer confirmed his worst fears. Admiral, hyperspace drives are offline. Something is jamming our navigation systems. We studied your faster-than-light technology very carefully, Chen continued. It's actually quite elegant once you understand the underlying principles. We've had teams of physicists working on countermeasures ever since we decoded the drive signatures from your previous conquests. The human fleet began moving in perfect formation, surrounding the Zephyrian ships like wolves circling their prey. Their coordination was flawless. Their tactics adapted specifically to counter every Zephyrian strength. This is impossible, Vextar whispered. You're a primitive species. You've barely left your home system. Admiral, Chen said, her voice now carrying an edge of steel. We are the species that turned an entire planet into our hunting ground. We are the species that survived ice ages, supervolcanic eruptions, plague outbreaks, and 5,000 years of constant warfare with ourselves. We are the species that looked at a world full of predators trying to eat us and decided to eat them instead. She paused, letting her words sink in. Did you really think beings like that would explore the galaxy unprepared for war? The human ships opened fire in unison, and the Zephyrian fleet began dying. Shield generators overloaded. Hulls buckled under weapons that seemed to know exactly where to strike for maximum damage. In minutes, half of Vextar's force was dead or dying. Please, Vextar found himself saying the word alien to his tongue. We can negotiate. We can reach an arrangement. Chen's expression hardened. Now you want to negotiate. After threatening to enslave 50,000 of my people. After bragging about the 17 civilizations you've destroyed. After giving us the choice between slavery and death, she leaned back in her chair. Admiral, you made a very simple mistake. You assumed humans were prey because we travel in family groups and build things together. You thought cooperation meant weakness. You couldn't have been more wrong. The last of Vextar's escorts exploded in a brilliant flash of plasma fire. His flagship was alone now, surrounded by predators who had been planning this moment for decades. Humans don't cooperate because we're weak, Chen said quietly. We cooperate because we're the most dangerous pack hunters the galaxy has ever seen. And Admiral, you just threatened our pack. The emergency council meeting on the Zephyrian homeworld of Zephys Prime lasted exactly 17 minutes before dissolving into chaos. High Command had just watched their routine conquest fleet vanish from existence, and nobody had any answers. Supreme Commander Krixtal, ruler of the hegemony for 30 years, stared at the empty tactical display where Admiral Vextar's flagship had been transmitting mere hours ago. Around the massive war room, his generals argued and shouted while their carefully constructed empire began cracking at the foundations. How is this possible? General Mordak demanded, his scales flush with agitation. 15 battle cruisers destroyed by a single primitive vessel. Our intelligence reports showed they barely had orbital capability. The intelligence was wrong, Commander Krixtal said quietly, his voice cutting through the arguing. The question now is, how wrong were we about everything else? As if summoned by his words, alerts began flooding the communication center. Reports poured in from across Zephyrian space, each one more disturbing than the last. Mining operations on the rim worlds had gone dark. Communication relays throughout 3 sectors were offline. Supply convoys had simply vanished without distress signals. Sir, reported Intelligence Chief Vakmore, his voice shaking. We're receiving fragmentary transmissions from Outpost Gamma 7. Before losing contact, they reported shadow attackers, beings that appeared without warning, destroyed critical infrastructure, and disappeared again. Show me, Krixtal ordered. The main display flickered to life, showing security footage from a Zephyrian mining facility. The timestamp showed the recording was less than 6 hours old. Everything appeared normal until the light suddenly went out. Emergency illumination revealed shapes moving through the complex, but not like any Zephyrians. The figures were smaller, more agile, moving with fluid precision through areas that should have been impossible to navigate in darkness. They struck with surgical accuracy, destroying power generators, communication arrays, and life support systems, while avoiding the heavily defended Central Command. Pause there, Krixtal commanded. The image froze on one of the attackers, and the Supreme Commander felt his blood turn cold. Enhance that section. The figure was clearly human, shorter than a Zephyrian but moving with predatory grace that spoke of perfect environmental adaptation. What terrified Krixtal most was the equipment. The human wore armor that seemed to bend light around it, carried weapons that left no energy signature, and moved through the facility as if he had built it himself. How did they know our facility layouts? General Mordak asked. Those bases are classified beyond top secret. Before anyone could answer, more reports arrived. Humans had been spotted on 7 different worlds, always in small teams, always striking infrastructure rather than military targets. They hit power plants, communication centers, transportation hubs, anything that kept Zephyrian civilization functioning smoothly. They're not trying to conquer our worlds, Vakmore realized. They're trying to make us afraid to live on them. Krixtal studied the tactical reports with growing unease. The humans weren't fighting like any opponent the hegemony had faced. Previous enemies had met Zephyrian fleets in space or tried to defend their homeworlds. These humans were ignoring conventional warfare entirely. Sir, another aide interrupted, we're receiving priority transmissions from the Velkari mining colonies. The Velkari? Mordak scoffed. What could those slaves possibly have to report? The answer came in the form of explosions visible from orbit. Zephyrian garrison ships watched helplessly as their ground installations burned, but this time the attackers weren't human. The Velkari are in open revolt, Vakmore reported, his voice barely controlled. They're using human weapons and human tactics. Our garrison commanders report that the slaves somehow acquired military-grade equipment and detailed intelligence about our defensive positions. The pattern was becoming clear, and it terrified Krixtal more than any direct military assault could have. The humans weren't just attacking the hegemony, they were teaching their victims to fight back. How many systems are affected? he demanded. 17 so far, sir. Every world with a significant population of conquered species. 17. The exact number of species the Zephyrians had enslaved. This was no coincidence. Sir, communications reported, we're receiving a transmission from Grand Admiral Zethkar's fleet. He's requesting permission to return to defend the core worlds. Absolutely not, Mordak interrupted. We need that fleet to crush the human homeworld before this rebellion spreads further. Crixtel held up a scaled hand for silence. Something about this entire situation felt wrong, like a trap designed by a predator far more cunning than they had given the humans credit for. How many ships are we sending to Earth? He asked quietly. 500 of our finest vessels, Mordak replied proudly. The humans will face the largest armada in hegemony history. Their pathetic solar system will burn. And while those 500 ships attack Earth, how many ships remain to defend our 17 core worlds? The silence that followed was deafening. Mordak's scales paled as the implication sank in. Sir, surely the humans don't have enough ships to threaten our homeworlds. Their entire fleet numbered less than 50 vessels. Their entire visible fleet, Crixtal corrected grimly. The same intelligence network that missed their true military capabilities also told us they had no hidden assets. Given recent events, how much faith do you place in our intelligence assessments? As if to answer his question, new alarms began sounding throughout the command center. The orbital defense platforms around Zephys Prime were detecting massive energy signatures approaching the system. Impossible, breathed the sensor operator. Sir, I'm reading over 200 human vessels approaching our homeworld. They're moving in perfect formation and they're not responding to our challenges. 200 ships? Mordak demanded. Where did they come from? Our deep space monitors show no hyperspace signatures. They didn't use hyperspace, Crixtal realized with dawning horror. They were already here. They've been positioning assets throughout our empire, while we were busy threatening their colony ship. The tactical display updated to show the approaching human fleet. Unlike the improvised-looking vessels they had expected, these ships were clearly purpose-built for war. Sleek, deadly, and moving with the coordinated precision of apex predators who had planned this attack for years. Sir, reported communications, the human fleet is broadcasting on all frequencies. They're addressing everyone, every species in Zephyrian space, sir. They're broadcasting in 17 different languages. Crixtal closed his eyes, understanding at last the scope of humanity's strategy. Put them on screen. A human face appeared on the main display. Not a military officer, but a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a grandmother's smile. When she spoke, her words were simultaneously translated into every language spoken by the hegemony's enslaved populations. People of the Zephyrian Empire, she began. My name is Dr. Sarah Martinez, and I represent the United Earth Defense Forces. For 70 years, we have watched your suffering under Zephyrian rule. We have studied your cultures, learned your languages, and prepared for this day. She paused, and her expression hardened. The Zephyrians gave humanity a choice, slavery or death. They assumed we would choose slavery, as they believed all civilized species should. They were wrong. We choose a third option, liberation. The display showed images of human weapons being distributed to rebellion forces across Zephyrian space. Velkari miners wielding plasma rifles, Thornian engineers building improvised explosives, Kimar scholars coordinating resistance cells through quantum-encrypted communications. No species should have to choose between freedom and survival, Dr. Martinez continued. Today, with our help, you don't have to. The weapons we provide are gifts, not loans. The tactical support we offer comes with no strings attached. Fight for your freedom, and we will ensure you have the tools to win it. Throughout Zephyrian space, the enslaved masses were rising. Mining colonies seized their orbital platforms. Agricultural worlds turned their farming equipment into weapons. Industrial centers redirected their production capabilities toward rebellion. This is coordinated, Crixtal whispered. They didn't just plan to fight us, they planned to destroy us. Every aspect of our empire is under simultaneous attack. Sir, his aide reported, Grand Admiral Zethkar is requesting new orders. His fleet has reached the human solar system, but what? The solar system appears to be empty, sir. No defense fleets, no orbital platforms, just the star and its planets. He's requesting confirmation before beginning the bombardment of Earth. Crixtal stared at the tactical displays showing human fleets throughout his empire, coordinated rebellions on every enslaved world. and a 500-ship armada approaching an apparently defenseless Earth. "Tell Admiral Zethkar to proceed with extreme caution," he ordered. "If humans are willing to leave their homeworld undefended while they attack ours, they either have a very good reason or a very terrible plan." On the screen, Dr. Martinez was concluding her broadcast. "To the Zephyrian leadership watching this transmission, you asked what humans are capable of. You're about to find out. We are the species that looked at a galaxy full of empires built on slavery and decided that was unacceptable. Grand Admiral Zethkar had conquered 12 star systems in his 40-year military career. He had overseen the subjugation of 4 different species and earned more battle honors than any other Zephyrian commander in history. But as his massive fleet approached the human solar system, something felt terribly wrong. "Admiral," reported his sensor chief, "detailed scans confirm no defensive fleets in the system, no orbital weapons platforms, no obvious military installations. Earth appears completely undefended." Zethkar studied the tactical display with growing unease. 500 of the hegemony's finest warships surrounded him, enough firepower to sterilize a dozen worlds, yet the humans had left their homeworld protected by nothing but empty space and silence. "It's a trap," he said quietly. "Sir?" His second-in-command, Captain Velmore, looked confused. "What kind of trap could protect an entire world against our fleet?" Before Zethkar could answer, his communications officer interrupted. "Admiral, we're receiving multiple transmissions from Hegemony Command. Priority Alpha emergency signals. On screen. The bridge filled with reports of chaos from across Zephyrian space. Rebellions on every enslaved world. Human strike teams destroying infrastructure throughout the Empire. Their own homeworld under attack by a fleet that had appeared from nowhere. Impossible," breathed Velmore. "Where did they get so many ships?" Zethkar continued studying his sensors, and slowly the pieces began falling into place. The asteroid belt showed unusual mineral compositions. Several of the outer planets had orbital mechanics that didn't quite match the star system's gravitational models. Even the space dust seemed distributed in patterns that looked almost artificial. "Communications," he ordered. "Scan for any structures that might be camouflaged or hidden within the system." "Admiral, our sensors show nothing but natural astronomical bodies. Scan again. Use deep penetration radar and gravitational analysis. Look for anything that doesn't belong." Long minutes passed as the sensor operators worked. Finally, one of them looked up with an expression of pure terror. "Sir, you need to see this." The tactical display updated, and Zethkar felt his heart stop beating. What he had assumed was an empty solar system was actually the most elaborate weapons platform in galactic history. Every asteroid had been hollowed out and converted into a gun battery. The gas giants' moons were massive manufacturing facilities. Even the comets following their predictable orbits were revealed to be mobile weapon platforms. "By the Ancient Ones," whispered Velmore, "the entire system is a fortress." "No," Zethkar corrected grimly. "It's a trap." "And we just flew straight into it." As if responding to his words, the human deception began dropping away like discarded camouflage. Asteroid bases revealed massive particle beam cannons. Hidden shipyards ejected thousands of smaller attack craft. Weapon platforms that had been disguised as space debris powered up with energy signatures that made Zethkar's sensors scream warnings. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported with barely controlled panic, "I'm counting over 50,000 individual weapon systems throughout the system. Energy readings suggest they're all targeting us." "How is this possible?" Velmore demanded. "Intelligence reported this was a primitive species with basic technology. Intelligence was fed exactly what the humans wanted us to see," Zethkar realized. "They've been preparing for this battle for decades, maybe longer." The main display activated, showing a familiar human face. Captain Chen of the New Horizons looked as calm and confident as she had when destroying Admiral Vextar's fleet. "Grand Admiral Zethkar," she said politely, "welcome to Sol System. We've been expecting you." "Expecting us?" "Oh yes. We've been tracking your fleet movements for weeks. We know your battle tactics, your weapon capabilities, your command structure. We've studied every engagement the hegemony has fought for the past century. You might say we've become experts on Zephyrian military doctrine." Chen gestured off-screen, and the display showed recordings of the Zephyrian fleet's approach route. "You followed standard hegemony invasion protocols perfectly. Overwhelming force, direct approach, intimidation through superior numbers. It's worked for you 17 times before. The display changed to show tactical analyses of previous Zephyrian conquests. Every battle followed the same pattern. Massive fleet arrives, demonstrates superior firepower, demands surrender, crushes any resistance through brute force. The problem, Chen continued, is that humans don't follow the same rules as the species you've conquered before. When you threaten us, we don't calculate odds of survival. We calculate how much damage we can do before we die. As if to demonstrate her point, human weapons throughout the solar system opened fire simultaneously, but instead of targeting the Zephyrian ships directly, they created a cage of energy beams and plasma bolts around the enemy fleet. Zethkar's ships were trapped inside a sphere of destructive power that could vaporize them instantly. However, Chen said with a slight smile, we've learned something interesting about your psychology through decades of observation. Zephyrians respond to overwhelming force because that's all you've ever understood. So let us demonstrate what overwhelming force actually looks like. The weapon cage around Zethkar's fleet pulsed once, and every Zephyrian shield generator overloaded simultaneously. Not destroyed, just disabled. The message was clear. The humans could have annihilated the entire fleet in that single moment, but chose not to. Admiral, Chen continued, you're receiving a priority transmission from your Supreme Commander. I suggest you take it. The display switched to show Commander Crixtal on Zephys Prime, and Zethkar was shocked by what he saw. The Supreme Commander looked broken, his scales pale with defeat and exhaustion. Zethkar, Crixtal said heavily, stand down all weapons and prepare to receive surrender terms. Sir, it's over. The Empire is finished. 17 worlds are in full rebellion. Our core systems are under attack. Half our fleet is destroyed or captured. The humans have done in 3 days what we thought impossible. They've liberated every species we ever conquered. The display showed images from across Zephyrian space. Former slave worlds celebrating their freedom. Zephyrian garrison forces surrendering to rebels armed with human weapons. The 1,000-year empire crumbling in hours, but how? Zethkar asked. How did they coordinate all of this? Captain Chen answered from Earth. Simple, Admiral. We did what humans always do when someone threatens our family. We made friends. For 50 years we've been secretly contacting every species you enslaved. We learned their languages, studied their cultures, understood their dreams of freedom. The display showed human diplomats working with alien resistance movements, human engineers teaching rebel forces to build weapons, human soldiers training liberation armies on hidden bases throughout the galaxy. We gave them hope, Chen said simply, and then we gave them the tools to fight. When your empire threatened to enslave humanity, 17 different species rose up as one to ensure that never happens to anyone again. Zethkar looked around his bridge at officers who had spent their careers conquering weaker civilizations. They looked lost, unable to comprehend an enemy that fought not for conquest but for liberation. What happens now? He asked quietly. Now, Chen replied. You learn what justice looks like when it's administered by the species you tried to enslave. But first, let me introduce you to some people who have been waiting a long time to meet you. The display split to show representatives from all 17 liberated species, Felkari miners, Thornian engineers, Kimar scholars, and 14 other races that had suffered under Zephyrian rule. They looked at Zethkar with expressions ranging from anger to pity to grim satisfaction. The Terran Liberation Alliance has been formed, Chen announced, with a simple mandate: ensure that no species ever again faces the choice between slavery and extinction. The Zephyrian hegemony's age of conquest is over. The age of freedom has begun. Zethkar's communications officer looked up with tears in his eyes. Admiral, we're receiving surrender offers from our remaining fleets throughout the Empire. Nobody wants to fight anymore. It's really over. Through his bridge window, Zethkar could see the massive human weapon systems powered down but still ready. 50,000 gun barrels pointed at his fleet, operated by beings who had turned their entire solar system into a weapon of liberation. Captain Chen, he said finally, I formally surrender my fleet to the Terran Liberation Alliance. We yield, Chen nodded respectfully. Thank you, Admiral. You and your crews will be treated with dignity and respect, something your empire rarely showed others. The age of conquest through fear is ending. The age of cooperation through hope has begun. As Zethkar's ships powered down their weapons and prepared for processing, he realized the full scope of humanity's victory. They hadn't just defeated the Zephyrian hegemony, they had created something entirely new in the galaxy. An alliance based not on dominance but on the radical idea that all species deserved freedom. On the main screen, Captain Chen was addressing not just the Zephyrian fleet,